I'm going to get going, and as people come in, I don't know, welcome them and let them know to sign in. So welcome to the brand new Pacific Trail District Cub Scouts Breakout. It's a fantastic new day. It's June. This isn't weird at all, right? Doing this over Zoom instead of being in person. Welcome. It's going to be fantastic. And before I even go further, I would like to request that each and every one of you has a chat feature available to you. It should be in one of the, down to the bottom bar if you scroll over my face or whatever you see in front of you. And open chat. Heather's watching. Please add in chat as one comment your name, your unit type and number. So Josh Steinhurst, pack 195, right, Josh? Okay. What you do for that pack, den leader, cub master, committee chair, whatever. And as a final and most important thing for most of you, since I don't have your email addresses, please include your valid email address. I promise, I solemnly swear that I will send each and every one of you a email before midnight tonight. I've never missed in the Cub Scout Breakout with a pointer to a location on a Google Drive where you can download the slides that I present today, as well as handouts and a bunch of other stuff. So again, name, your unit type and number. I'm assuming you're all with packs. What you do for that unit, and most importantly, your email address. And make sure it's valid. If you send me a fake email address, I'm gonna have to look you up, and that just wastes time. So that's what I'm asking of you. Heather's gonna keep an eye on that, and thank you, Heather, for doing that. I really appreciate it. And then we will be able to make our reports and send out all the information that y'all need. So our agenda for today is as follows. I like to start with some news, sports, and weather. And I guess I'll start with introducing myself. For those of you who don't know me, which maybe is very few of you, I think I recognize almost everybody, although I don't know which James I'm talking to. David knows me from years past, so that's cool. So I'll introduce myself really briefly. I'm not gonna go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves because that's just, I don't know, people are shy, and that's okay. But at the end, we will have an opportunity to have conversations and discussions, so that's cool. I will dive into some news, sports, and weather. There's a lot of you have probably already heard some of it, if not all of it. So I hope it's not a complete repeat for everybody, but I'm going to reiterate some of that in case you've been living under a rock. And I'm going to jump into our interest topics for the month, which are primarily annual planning. And then Journey to Excellence is about, I don't know, 6 or 7 slides, kind of a grace note on the end of annual planning. You'll understand why, if you haven't seen my annual planning presentation in the past, why Journey to Excellence fits in as a topic for this. And we'll wrap it up with final thoughts and resources. And if you have a war story or a big long question to ask or a tale to tell, I ask that you hold it to the end if you can. If you do have a quick question, you need clarification on something, please feel free to raise that digital hand or even just barge in and unmute yourself and interrupt me. It's okay, I can take it. So that's the goal for today. Everybody cool? You guys are mostly not even showing your video, which is fine. So, okay, I'm just going to forge on here. And remember, please do the attendance in the chat box. You will get copies of the slides, the handouts, the whole bit. So who the heck is this guy who's on this video in front of you, yammering at you with all these videos? My name is Mike Volz. For those of you who don't know me, I am a native Oregonian. I come from Corvallis. I do bleed black and orange. I was a scout for a long time back in the day. I have about a 5.5-year stint as a committee chair with PAC 685. I am now I think of myself as a committee member emeritus. If you know, the emeritus professors are usually the old folks who like to stick around and teach their favorite class once or twice a year. They haven't kicked me out yet, but I think that's kind of where I'm at. I like to come back and advise as best I can. They'll probably kick me out someday. I am currently serving as committee chair for Troop 162 and 5162 here in Beaverton. I've been serving as a Roundtable commissioner in Sunset Trail for about 5.5 years and continuing on with Pacific Trail, which is great. And assistant Roundtable commissioner for Cub Scout Roundtables. And I do a bunch of stuff for University of Scouting and things like that. So the reason I brought this up, you know, most of you know me, I think, but the reason I wanted to present this, especially for those of you who don't know me, is to really reinforce that my role here in Scouting is primarily supporting other volunteers. in making their scouting program fantastic. Okay. I'm not here necessarily to tell you how to do annual planning, how to make an amazing program. I'm here to give you suggestions, and I hope that you take those and filter that through the realm of this will work for us and this won't, and take whatever works for you. All right. You're going to hear me say that a couple times today. Take what works for you and go with it. And if it doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. So I have spent a lot of my time as a volunteer over the past 5 or 6 years supporting Cub Scout leaders just like you, and I hope that that comes through. The second reason is I want to really reinforce that I have my commissioner's hat on today. I very firmly believe that if we are all successful in all of our packs, that we will all come out of this stronger as a program, and scouting in this area will be stronger. And we'll come out stronger and have more fun, and we'll get to like something like Camporee in a year or two, and you'll see these young scouts doing amazing things. So that's my pitch for why I'm here, and hopefully I've sold myself as a bit of an expert. We'll see. I've done this annual planning thing a number of times, and I've learned a lot from it. So the breaking news, what's going on in the world today? Well, like I said, welcome to our new district. Fundamentally, the district changes should not impact your unit, your program, your scouts. It should be very much transparent to them. You, as a result, might see more participants at Webelos Woods in the future. I'm not sure if we're going to have one in October. I hope that we do. I really hope that some amazing thing happens and we can have Webelos Woods. But realistically, I'm looking forward to 2021. And if you went before, you will probably see a lot more people, a lot more scouts as you did previous years. If you've been to Camporees with troops, you'll probably see more units. That's the biggest change. You're going to have some more people at the district level that do different things to support you, but that's really transparent to your unit, your scouts, and that's kind of important. Despite what Mr. Danner said about 12 minutes ago, there is an interesting twist that we are moving away from district patches. And the result of that I'm not sure if many people have really thought about, but I think that those activity segments that a lot of us have been relying on for recognizing our scouts and the things that they do, I think they're going to be going away. I don't know for sure if that's a fact, but I would be willing to bet, since they were designed to go around these round district patches on our Cub Scouts uniform, I think it's high time that we as packs look at other ways to recognize our Cub Scouts under the expectation that there's nothing to sew those things around. And I'll give you a little perspective as a committee chair for my 2 units, my 2 troops that I volunteer for today. When we come back to some semblance of normal, and we are, I hope, preparing to go to Camporee 2021 in May, I am going to ask both our scoutmasters to ask our scouts to remove the Sunset Trail patches from their uniforms, because I don't want our scouts to go to Camporee and have a bifurcation of, well, you're from Tuolumne, well, I'm from Sunset Trail, you're better, I'm better. We're all in Pacific Trail now. We're all in this together. It's a friendly competition at Camporee. Same thing at summer camp. We're all together now. And I'm not going to ask our Cub Scouts to take their patches off. I think that's a little too much. But I think it's worth, as pack leaders, to think about that going forward. What are we doing to recognize our scouts for the hikes that they go on, things like that? And as our bear scouts become Webelos, and maybe some of them select the tan uniform to wear, they probably should be encouraged to not put a district patch on. And at some point, you're actually going to see these district patches disappear from the scout shop. It may be gone by the time it reopens. So worth thinking about. The district patches are going away. There might be a temporary patch. It shouldn't be permanent, though. And I don't know. That's my suspicion of what Mr. Danner was talking about 15 minutes ago. So think about new ways to recognize your scouts. Beads used to be the big thing. Create some sort of a bead dangler, or maybe you earn a feather if you do something cool. I don't know. And this could be a great way to distinguish your unit from all the other units in your area, and make your scouts really proud of what they do. So that's my insight a little bit into what that's all about and what to look forward to. So we're all dealing with this COVID-19 thing right now. And over the past, it's been about 6 or 7 days, I've had a lot of conversations and discussions with some of our council professionals about this. And I wanted to share with you some of the insights that I've learned recently. They've provided me with a certain level of frustration, but there's also hope. So I'm going to kind of go through some of these. Washington County right now is in what Oregon defines as phase 1. And that kind of means we can't do a lot in terms of meeting, whether it be outside or inside, or going and traveling outside of our area. Hopefully we're going to enter phase 2 shortly, as that's defined today. If we get into phase 2, we can meet as groups indoors with up to 50 people, as long as we are safe, we keep our physical distance and all those things. And we can meet outdoors with, in theory, up to 100 people, again, being safe, having our physical distancing in place and all that kind of stuff. This is the time when your PACs, your den should start thinking about reinstating some sort of an outdoor program. And you may choose to meet at a park. You may have the ability to meet at your chartered organization. You may not. But when we finally reach phase 2, you can start thinking about that. However, there are some caveats. Of course, your chartered organization or the place where you usually meet may not be available to you. Reach out to those places and ask the question when we get to phase 2, hey, at what point can we as a unit, as a group of scouts, meet again inside your facility? And outdoor facilities may or may not be available as well, depending on where you're at. You may see different policies from one city to the next. Since we are now from Beaverton all the way out to Gaston and Vernonia, you might see a lot of different policies. As a group of adult leaders, we need to be very aware of that and reach out to the local authorities and understand if we can go to the local park, if we can go to the state park, county park. All those are facilitated by different organizations, and we should be very aware of what we can use and not use on a regular basis. A couple of the things that really frustrated me, and I think I want to pass on to you so that you can be aware and not cross the line on this. Even when we reach phase 2 here in Oregon, as it's defined today, we cannot carpool with people outside of our family members, our bubble that we've created to get through this. This puts a big dent in troop programs, because our program, very much focuses on outdoors and camping every month. As PACs, it's probably a little bit less impactful, although I know there's at least 1 or 2 PACs out on the west side of Pacific Trail District that go camping frequently. Please know that if you carpool with people outside of your bubble, you're putting not only yourself at risk to a certain extent, but you will not be covered if something happens by the council, because they have already stated very clearly in certain places that this is not okay, and you would be essentially violating Oregon Health Authority regulations until they redefine phase 2 or we get to phase 3. Additionally, we cannot have group camping events with non-family members, camping being overnight. You can go to a park and stay all day long, and that's awesome. You can build stuff, you can make things, but as soon as it hits overnight, as the way it's defined phase 2 by the state of Oregon today, it's not okay. It's a little weird. I find it frustrating, but that's the way it is. And until it changes, we need to be very aware of that. There are 2 links down here at the bottom that essentially should give you answers to some of those points, or at least reinforce those. I encourage you to look at those, research them, and understand them, because it's kind of important. And again, if your PAC goes camping, even if you decide you find a county up in Washington State that says, oh, you can go camping, it's okay, and we're still in phase 1 and not supposed to travel, and you carpool, you're not going to be covered under our council's umbrella insurance policy. And we wouldn't want something bad to happen. So that's that. I hope if there are questions, please raise that digital hand. Let me know if it's quick. I will also be able to speak to these towards the end. I know there's probably a lot of stuff here that a lot of you are going, oh my gosh, really? I get it. And to wrap up sort of the frustrating news, of course, for those of you that attended the national opening, BSA National Council did announce, I think it was last week, a slight increase to its membership fees. I will let you read all this stuff. Basically, it's $6 for most everybody. It's not a big deal. It could have been a lot worse. The point that I really want to point out to each of you is that effective August 1st, there will be a new member one-time joining fee of $25 for any new youth member at any program. Could be a PAC, troop, cruise, ship, you name it. And that is going to be, it does not apply to adult leaders, by the way. It does not apply to transfer scouts and things like that. It does apply to every youth member. We need to think when we get to fall recruitment about how we very carefully sell scouting and the value of scouting. This is going to make it more and more challenging for us to sell our program based on the cost. It's still a good value. But when we get around to fall recruitment, and I have no doubt that, Heather, we're going to talk about fall recruitment in a couple months, right? Yeah?
I would assume so. I don't have any direction yet, but yeah, that would.
Well, we will create our own direction.
Like we're just gonna create our own path. That's exactly it.
This is how we do.
We're finding our own trail.
Exactly. So we will, I'm sure, discuss fall recruitment in a couple months, and we will talk about this. But I think it's worth talking and thinking about right now how we reinforce the value of scouting, the value of your unit, because the price tag to join is not going to be tiny. And it's also important to reinforce the value of fundraising. And if your unit has not done fundraising in the past, maybe now is the time to look at that. Do you want to look at doing popcorn or Christmas trees or Christmas wreaths or frozen pies or whatever? Now is the time to look into those things and understand what might work for you. The last bit of slightly frustrating news, and this came out a few months ago, so I just want to reiterate and make sure everybody's aware before we charge on, is that National Council did create and publish a new medical form. We're about 5 or 6 months into this. Fundamentally, your unit's records should not include old medical forms as of the end of this calendar year. The good news is, for most of us, we're not going to camp and we're not, going to really need a Part C or anything. So, whatever. However, when you do get back to doing fun things with your scouts and your pack and your dens, you should make sure to reinforce that your families submit a new medical form for every one of the scouts and make sure everything's updated. Because if you get to January, February, and you've got a gaggle of Cub Scouts that have an old form, it's not going to be good for anybody. So just remember that. And finally, on to the good stuff. There was a whole bunch of great information that was published recently about new summer adventures. There's a link there at the bottom to this. Our council is doing what I would consider really amazing work on trying to help us make a continuous bridge for our Cub Scouts from this challenging time onto at least through the summer, if not when we get back to some semblance of normal. There are, above and beyond the Adventure Club, there is family camping and camp opportunities at Camp Clark, Camp Meriwether, Pioneer, and Baldwin. Please know that those are family. If you have your entire den of families sign up, they're still going to expect you to be separate. So you can't really get around that one. You're not supposed to do that. But this is really cool. This Adventure Club thing is all about a summer program. It opens up tomorrow at that link. It's kind of a subscription program for Cub Scouts. They got these awesome themes from space, summer circus, superheroes, digging for dinos, ocean exploration, detective academy, passport to adventure, and inventors lab. It just sounds really cool. And essentially, they also have some bonus kits that are essentially summer camp in a box. They ship to you stuff that kind of mirrors what you would do at, say, Butte Creek or Camp Clark or Camp Ireland, and you can do that at home. And there's also a really fantastic-looking STEM Nova Camp set coming up with a bunch of Nova boxes that are optional available. I highly encourage any of you that are interested in that to check it out, look it up. It's, again, released tomorrow. And there's a whole different thing, too, with these 3 summer challenges, one for each month. June is hiking. July is Scout Strong 5K challenge. And then Scout Quest is in August. Sounds like some sort of a really big scavenger hunt. So I really look forward to that. I hope that you and your pack and your dens can embrace that and use that to sort of fill in the gaps for getting our scouts through this challenging time and what we hope is not going to be a boring summer. Look for those tomorrow. Check out that link. And it sounds like the costs are going to be really reasonable, too. Okay, finally, my last bit of news, sports, and weather is that there is a new Wood Badge course coming up planned for September this year. As far as I know, it is not going to be impacted, as far as I know, by this virus activity. The plan is for that to be September 11th through 13th, which is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the second weekend is that last Saturday, Sunday. Current plan is Butte Creek Scout Ranch. Chris Comp is your amazing course director. If you are interested in going, the only thing you need to be is registered as a leader of some kind, position-specific train for that position that you have in scouting, and have a valid Part A, B, and C medical form. The cost is $275 this year, but I will tell you this, if the cost is the only reason why you wouldn't go, please ask for help. There is financial assistance available. I know that Heather can help you, and I can point you in the right direction as well. There's a link to registration at the bottom. Heather, am I forgetting anything?
No, I think you're good with that. And yeah, we actually do have to get new updated medical forms. So I did confirm that.
Yes.
So if you are signed up to go or you're going to go, please keep that in mind and make sure you get your doctor's appointment booked.
Excellent. Thank you. For those of you who are not familiar with what Wood Badge is, I'm going to do a really quick overview. It is a pinnacle of adult leadership training. It's all about communication, teamwork, leadership, conflict resolution. It is truly an amazing experience, classroom learning along with outdoors, and it is truly for anybody that's in a registered position in BSA, whether it's Cub Scout pack, a troop, a venture crew, a Sea Scout ship, district council, you name it. Everyone's welcome to come if you're registered. A few quick images from last year's course that I was had the pleasure of staffing at. You can see, I think this is day 1 or 2. Inside, we've got the Brown Sea Island Challenge, my beavers there. And one of the best parts about Wood Badge, in my opinion, is you meet some of the most amazing people. I have met some of the most awesome folks that I keep in touch with on a regular basis. And some of them are here today, which is even better. It is an experience that you will not forget, and it will make you, in my opinion, a better person. And if it happens to be at Camp Clark, the views aren't terrible. And Butte Creek has its own charm and wonderfulness. So with that, I'm going to pause for just a second to see if anybody has any questions before I launch into the Big Rock topic. Everybody doing okay?
Mr. Markle has his hand up.
Mr. Markle, go ahead, David.
Hey, Mike. Hey, question. As far as, I know we're getting rid of the district patches, but the segments, I mean, are they not something that we can still have scouts put onto like a swag vest or something like that for just giving them more excitement to do some of the activities that you used to get segments for?
So I believe so. However, what I would warn you as, if the district rounder patch goes away, it just seems to follow that the other patches that have been designed to go around that may also go away. They might not. It's just my suspicion that they might not be around for much longer. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. I figured, the Butte Creek round patch, they could put around one of those, I guess.
That's a good point. You can put whatever you want on there.
Yeah.
And National has left that part of the uniform sort of up to us as volunteers to put. You know, a council can have an opt-in option, which is essentially what the district patch used to be. But the folks that did all the district re-swizzling basically said, you know, we looked at all the policies and said, we probably shouldn't be doing a district patch. And so we're going to be moving away from that. That makes sense, David?
Yep. Thanks, Mike.
All right. And the other way to sell that is, hey, this patch is going to be a collector's item. You're not going to be able to buy this. So put it in a shadow box and save it. You might be able to trade it at World Jamboree for, you know, something amazing. So,
got it.
Anybody else have any thoughts or comments on some of those news items and things going on? Let me go ahead and okay. All right. So moving forward, annual planning. The way that I preface this is that annual planning is never the most glorious or exciting thing that we do as adult leaders, but it is something that we can use to springboard and lay a really solid foundation for the future months and years, and to make a really fantastic program for our Cub Scouts. And I really feel that if it's done well and done in a solid way, it can make our job as leaders much easier. We're not making it up as we go along. We're following a plan. We've already made a plan. We're just following the railroad tracks here. It's also a great time to reflect, to step back, to absorb everything that has happened over the past year, 2, maybe even 3 years. Get those ideas out there of what went well, what didn't go well, and then use that as a springboard forward to do something even better. The idea is continual improvement of your program, and your scouts will see great things if you look at it that way. So I encourage you to come at it with that perspective. There are 3, count them 3, primary goals for annual planning. Any good annual planning conference, meeting, hullabaloo, whatever you want to call it, at least 3. And those are, of course, you need a calendar of meetings and events, ideally 12 to 18 months from when you finish this planning session. And I will caveat this with, when I was committee chair for my PAC for 4 or 5 years, I had a really hard time getting anything beyond about 14 months. It just, people didn't want to plan the summer after the summer that wasn't here yet. You need to have a budget. And this is going to come into play when we talk about Journey to Excellence. But a budget, at least a proposal for how much things are going to cost, how we're going to pay for it. And then finally, a plan for your leadership. Annual planning is a fantastic time to reflect on, oh boy, our Cub Master's youngest kid is going to roll over into a troop in February. Oh gosh, we need to find or your committee chair or your treasurer or your advancement chair or whatever, especially when it comes to those adult leaders that serve the entire PAC. This is the time to start thinking about that. Who's going to be our next Cub Master? Do you have a succession plan? If so, are they ready? Are they trained? All that kind of stuff. National Council has always indicated that annual planning from a PAC perspective should kind of take place during the summer. And for about 5 or 6 years, I've always espoused that this is kind of too late. I personally, this is from experience, like to have our annual planning sometime in the realm of late March to late April. And the reason, one of the primary reasons for doing that is so we can hit spring recruitment hard and have that calendar ready to go and ask those prospective scouts and their parents, hey, here's what we're doing for the next year. Join us. It's a powerful message. Well, spring recruitment is kind of a wash this year, as I'm sure all of you know. So now is a good time to make sure that we have a solid plan in place for when we hit fall recruitment, because fall recruitment is going to be absolutely key this year. My most important point here is the last little part in parentheses down at the bottom. Do what works for your PAC. If your PAC has been doing annual planning in the last moments of August, and for the following however many number of months, your PAC leadership always feels like they're on the back foot, they're on their heels, trying to catch up, not knowing what they're doing, maybe it's time to change things up a little bit, move it up a little, and try something new. If it's working for you, great, go for it. So that's my pitch on that one. In theory, annual planning should be a joint event between the Cub Master and the committee chair. That is the ideal. In practice, what I've usually seen is one of those 2 people tends to spearhead it and be the major cheerleader, with hopefully the other person coming along and being enthusiastic as well. And to be honest, folks, it's about 50-50 split from all of our PACs, whether the committee chair is the cheerleader or the Cub Master. There's no wrong answer. It's okay. You can have it work either way. Know that this does not need to be a formal meeting. You don't need to use Robert's Rules of Order and rent a judicial chamber or whatever. You can bring your leadership to a restaurant, to your house, something like that, and just sit around a table and talk about what you want to do. The most important point is just to get the job done and make a plan. And I know right now it's hard to gather with anybody else around a table at, say, McMinimans or whatever. But that works. And the past 2 we've done in the PAC that I volunteer for have been around Valerie's kitchen table. So, and it works great. Actually, the last one was via Zoom, wasn't it, Val? So, and to speak to this slightly, my predecessor as Cub Scout Roundtable Commissioner in Sunset Trail, and this is for PAC 673, he would always take his leadership team to McMinimans, and they would get the big table and sit around the table and just talk, and it worked for them. So it doesn't have to be big and formal. Resources that you might want or need, and I'm speaking to this somewhat personally because my successor as committee chair doesn't need some of this stuff, but I have always found it really useful to have somebody to take notes as we go and make decisions, because I have a really hard time running a meeting and taking notes at the same time. And if it works for you, great. If not, find somebody else to record all those decisions. Make sure you have a calendar so you know that July 4th is on a Thursday or whatever it is, or Thanksgiving is on this weekend. So you just have all those little points lined up. Make sure you have your school district calendar, or if you draw from scouts that come from private schools, make sure you have those calendars set up so you know what's coming, when they're starting school, when the school breaks are, all that kind of stuff. Community calendars, lists of events, things like parades or farmers markets or weekend things that you want to be a part of. And yes, I know this is a caveat of we're assuming we'll be back to normal at some point. I absolutely believe that we will. You have to plan, even if it's right now, as if we're going forward with a normal way of doing scouting, and then maybe take a step back and have some adjustment plans if we have to be a little bit more careful or things aren't available to us. I always ask my leaders to come with ideas and open minds. What do you want to do? And maybe they talk to their scouts about what the scouts want to do, right? And bring those ideas. And the open minds I'll talk about in terms of the brainstorming aspect. When we do this in person, I always like to offer paper and pencils to the folks who come, just in case they want to jot down notes. I usually take home whatever I bring. It's fine, whatever. And I found over the past few years that having internet access or somebody who's pretty good at, say, Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever your favorite search engine can be very handy, even if it's just on a cell phone, to quickly, oh, hey, what's the weekend for the whatever? And they can go look it up real fast. It can be done on a laptop, cell phone, whatever. Used to be in days of yore that wasn't possible. You'd have to assign somebody to go research when that one weekend was and come back later and report in. But now we can get some of those answers. So internet access and the ability to search is really useful. Make sure your treasury comes with a proposed budget for the upcoming program year. Otherwise, it's going to be a short discussion about your budget. And finally, to that last point, a list of leadership needs. Reflect beforehand before you get there on what you're going to need for the future year. And the first and most important part is always creating a calendar. It always takes us quite a while to hash out some of those things, and it's also very valuable. And so it's okay to take a lot of time on this to create something that really works. Get those really important dates and add them to sort of what I think of as the master calendar. Again, what weekend is Easter? Which Thursday is Thanksgiving? When are the kids out of school? All this kind of stuff. And put those all in there as placeholders so you know whether those are available weekends or if it's weekends we should avoid, stuff like that. And then take some time to review what you did last year. Take a step back and ask, did it go well? Do we want to do those activities again? Do we want to try something new? A very valuable time to allow people to reflect and think about what it is that they really liked. And then I'll talk for a few minutes here in just a second about brainstorming. I love to bring people together and say, just remove all the barriers, remove all the judgment, and let's see what we come up with for ideas. I'll talk about that in just a second. And finally, once you have those ideas and you have space, start looking at those themes. National always creates themes for each month, and point to the Scout Law usually, right? Which months are those going to be? Do you want to stick with National's order of themes, or do you want to make your own? You can do either. There's nothing in stone about, trustworthy has to be September. No, you can make it whatever you want to. Heather and I have a great story about how we always had compassionate archery in November for years and years when we had the other points of the Scout Law or whatever it was, the Scout Promise. Stick around if you want to hear that story. It's pretty funny. I can tell you that after the presentation. And then finally, start prioritizing and adding those events to the calendar, and you end up with something awesome. And finally, when you have those events that you want to do your best to assign some leader for each of those events and meetings. Who's going to be responsible? Otherwise, you've got blue and gold out there in the ethereal future, but nobody's working on it. And if somebody at least knows that their job is to spearhead it and champion that event, they'll know that they need to gather people together to support that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that person needs to do all the work. It just means that they're the person to champion that event. And hopefully that's a message that you can send to all of those people as you have this, that I just need your name on here so I can ask you how it's going. And you can form the committee and launch them off. And finally, and this is an important one, is take a step back when you're done and look over your calendar and ask the question, does it make sense? About 4 or 5 years ago, our PAC scheduled something on Easter weekend, and it took me a week to find it because we forgot which weekend Easter was. And, oh gosh, we got to reschedule that. Don't make that mistake. So it's an easy one to make. So again, just take that step back at the end and ask, does this all make sense? I've talked a lot about brainstorming. I really enjoy this process with adult leaders. And I encourage you to bring people in and, again, kind of remove those barriers, remove the judgment, and just throw out ideas. If Bazooka Bob wants to say, we want to have bazooka target practice with our Cub Scouts, you know what? Write it on the board. You know that later on it's going to get filtered and removed because it doesn't fit into the guide to safe scouting, right? But Bazooka Bob still gets to have his voice heard. That's okay. No judgment. Just write down the ideas. And then when you get to a point where you have a great list of ideas, start categorizing those. Is this a day trip? Is it an overnighter? Is it a camping event? Are we talking about summer camp? Are we talking about service projects, conservation projects, fundraisers, all that kind of stuff? Even talk about awards that you think your den, your pack, your scouters might earn, or even your scouts. Do we want to support a STEM Nova program within our pack? Do we want to encourage our scouts to get the Supernova Award? Who's going to be that Supernova person we rely on? These are all valid things to throw out and talk about how we're going to do it brainstorming. And this is a image, I think this was from about 4 or 5 years ago, of just ideas. And you can just kind of see it's just a big list. It's not sorted, it's not categorized. And we've started to remove some stuff, but we started to prioritize. That's how this process works. Once you have that list of ideas, then you start prioritizing and eliminating them. And again, having somebody who's really familiar with the Guide to Safe Scouting to say, yes, Bazooka Bob, we hear you, but we can't do bazooka target practice, and here's why. A great example of this is we used to do sock wars with our pack, and that is now explicitly verboten via the Guide to Safe Scouting as of about a year ago. And I missed it and presented that as a possibility at University of Scouting and got called on it. And that was okay because I learned something. Remove the stuff that's inappropriate. Remove the stuff that is, people aren't feeling good about, if it's too expensive, if it's too far of a drive, whatever. Focus on the activities that have the most appeal to the largest audience within your pack. And by that, I mean, if you have 5 different events throughout the year where you're going bike riding, maybe there are a couple of Cub Scouts in your pack that don't ride bikes, and they would be excluded from that. If you have all of your events that cost at least $20 for each event, you might be excluding those people that have a hard time digging up $20 every month to go, whether it's bowling or indoor skydiving or whatever. That's going to be really hard. So think about that variety in different axes, the axes of accessibility, the axis of affordability, the axis of travel time. And I will say this, that we had a really hard time probably about 4 or 5 years ago, especially getting anybody to drive more than an hour for anything. And, maybe your pack is that way, and maybe it's not. I think it was just our families at the time. Think about how active you want your pack to be. Are you going to have one big activity every season, like an overnighter or a big trip up to the mountain or something like that? Or is it going to be less, or is it going to be more? What about a smaller activity every month? You want to go hiking, play disc golf, go on a bike ride. All these are great. Sort of each month, find something to do to keep your scouts active and engaged and outdoors, especially if it's good weather. And again, do what works for your pack. I know there's a pack out here on the west side that goes camping very frequently, and that is fantastic. Not every pack is that way. And keep in mind also that your dens, because of this activity, the adventures that they do, they're basically, most of them are structured of sort of 2 1-hour meetings and then go do something or be active somehow. It's not quite as strict as it used to be. About 5 years ago, it was very much den meeting, outing. Now it's den meeting, let's go take a walk or whatever. But be aware of that. And I'm thinking about things like the Webelos Walkabout event or adventure. It's a 3-mile hike with a meal in the middle. And there's a lot of things like that. Think about how you can structure your activities so that you hit as many of those type of things as possible. Almost every rank has a let's go on a hike type of a requirement built into it somewhere. Can we make a pack hiking event or 2 or 3 that can fulfill a lot of those things? Because every single rank pretty much has to talk about the outdoor code and leave no trace and all that kind of stuff. Can we get that in there? There's lots of vertical alignment that we can take advantage of in these things that we talk about. And that's one of the reasons I love to have den leaders come to these annual planning events and be thinking about that. Okay, next year I'm going to be a bear den leader. I have to have pocket knives. Oh my gosh, who did pocket knives last time? How do we do this, right? Once you get done with that, you're going to have a calendar, and the calendar should have your den meetings, your pack meetings, your fundraisers, your recruitment and join nights, your blue and gold banquet, your Pinewood Derby, hopefully, Win is scouting for food. Hopefully there's going to be Weeblos Woods on there, summer camps, all this great stuff. And this is where you take that step back and say, okay, where is Easter? That's my comment down here at the bottom. Be aware of the holidays. Where is Easter? Where is Thanksgiving? Make sure everything makes sense. And then this is where you make it pretty, and you print up a gazillion of them, and you get it ready for your your join nights, your recruitment push, because this is where you hand this to the mom or the dad or the grandpa of a potential Cub Scout and say, this is what we're doing for the next 12 months. Join us. And I guarantee you're going to have good success if you do that.
Hey, Mike, should I say my question to the very end, or should I just jump in?
How quick is it, Spencer?
Pretty quick. Just
go ahead.
Is there like some list for kind of the Washington County area that would have, here are all the great events going on. You got Big Truck Day, you've got Newt Day, you've got, and then, if you want to go on this field trip, here's the cost, here's the logistics. You need just something that would kind of have those core details.
I am not aware of a exhaustive list. Heather, are you aware of anything that encompasses like lots of those things?
Not really an exhaustive list. I think, THPRD is always a good resource. That little magazine that you get, Beaverton gets like a magazine that's here's what's going on in Beaverton, like has like the parade dates and things like that. Those are good. You can Google. That's another thing. You can Google it and see what you get.
Yep.
All right. Well, I get too passionate about it. I might have to do it myself. So
this is
I was about to say that's a great volunteer.
Thank you.
Josh agrees.
Yeah.
And
you put 5 hours into that, you'll save 150 volunteer hours across the the district.
Okay. And the one other thing that we run into is the school checking your calendar against the school calendar.
Yep.
And I remember like one pack, they were going, well, if there's no school this day, let's for sure do something together. And then the other pack said, well, no, if there's no school this day, all the parents are off on the 3-day weekend. Yep. So I just kind of throwing, it's good to think about those school calendar things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you could look at it both ways. And this comes back to my overall statement of do what works for your pack. And if you've never tried taking advantage of a 3-day weekend like that, give it a whirl, see what happens. Maybe you pick an oddball one that's like a grading day or something, and just see if people want to go camping or go do something or whatever. And keep in mind also with those type of things that you might have people that still need to go to work. But they might be more available, come later in the afternoon or something like that. If it's like a Friday or whatever. But it comes down to who's in the room with you and what they think, and if you want to give it a try. And I will caveat your first statement, Spencer, by saying that we have folks in our district now that range again from Gaston to Vernonia all the way to Raleigh Hills, and there are a lot of different little communities scattered throughout. And yeah, us in Beaverton might not be super interested in what day the Garlic Festival is in North Plains, but I tell you, somebody out there in North Plains or, that area sure is. So I think it comes down to dialing into what's in your area, right, as best you can.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
You bet. Okay, so once you have that calendar in place, it's time to start looking at your budget. And I know everybody's favorite topic is money and budgeting. But I will say that if you don't have a plan going forward, you are destined to fail. And that might be really bad in terms of a budget. So at least put something in place. And I know right now with where we're at in terms of COVID-19 and all of this stuff, it's really hard to know if we're going to have the ability to do fundraising. My recommendation is to go forward, assuming that at some point soon we can, and that we can get back to normal. And if for some reason we have to ratchet back, adjust as we go. A budget isn't, in my opinion, intended to be cast in stone. It's meant to be a set of guideposts, right? It's meant to be a first stab at what we think is going to happen. And recognize that every budget has, at least for most of our packs, sort of a variety of different things. And I think, is Ian on the line? Oh, my pack treasurer is not here. Dang it. Oh, well. There are costs per scout that we incur throughout the year. Most of those involve awards and advancements and things like that. And those are actually relatively easy to guess on based on your past year's experience. We've got fixed costs like, what does it cost to run a Pinewood Derby? What does it cost to do a blue and gold? Every pack's a little bit different in the way that they behave, but that's pretty easy to put forth and say, you know what, we'll budget X dollars for the Pinewood Derby for decorations and awards and stuff like that. And then you have variable costs from year to year, den materials, new leader guides, recruitment expenses, stuff like that. And at some point, you just got to take a swag at it and just give it your best shot, even if it's a wild guess. Go for it. And finally, your income opportunities. And this really does come down to how your pack operates, how the fundraising income or other income comes in. What have you got supporting you? Do you have corporate sponsorship? Do you have Intel employees? That sort of thing. And is that going to change this year? Is Intel going to change policies? Are we not going to be able to fundraise? Do your best with trying to figure out what that's going to look like. Every PAC's budget is different. Do not let somebody else tell you that your PAC's budget is wrong, because if it works for your PAC, that's fine. It's most important just to have a budget and have your PAC treasurer keep that roadmap in place as we go through the program year and check in on a regular basis. Please know that having scout accounts is actually still okay. There was a lot of confusion with this about 5 or 6 years ago. You just need to be very, very careful with fundraising dollars and not treat your scouts as if they are employees. Please listen to the December 2014 Cubcast. There's a transcript available also, link down there at the bottom. All right, one more couple of slides here. Once we have a budget in place, the final piece is to look at our leadership team and ask, what do we need for this next year? Do you have new dens that are being formed? And if so, do we have a bead on den leader possibilities? Maybe you've got a younger sibling coming in and a parent might be interested, or a grandparent, in leading that den and being a lion guide or whatever it is. Does your pack have a succession plan for their cub master? If you've got a cub master that's about to cross over into a troop because their youngest son or daughter is exiting, you've got your work cut out for you. Same thing with committee chairs and treasurers and all that kind of stuff. Do you have den chiefs for your dens? This is really valuable. If you can reach out to those troops and ask, hey, is there a scout that you can send over for our den meetings? Yes, now is not the ideal time to reach out to scoutmasters about this, but in my experience, and this is just me personally telling each of you as leaders, it can take months to get a den chief from the moment you ask a scoutmaster about that. Open up the conversation. Are you going to need a new chartered organization representative? If so, do you need to recruit that person, or should you go to your chartered org and ask them? There's no wrong answer. Just make sure you have one. This is the image that you will often see that I think National Council created decades ago about how a PAC should be structured. I don't really like this because the Cub Master is under the committee chair, the PAC committee in particular, and I like to look at it more like this. And yes, this is pie in the sky, very hopeful of having about 30 volunteers step forward to help. Probably will never happen, but this is my hope. And I always look at the Cub Master and the committee chair being on equal ground, and the Cub Master really focusing on the program, supporting den leaders, creating great PAC meetings, and the committee chair working in the background doing the business side of things. And again, look at the bottom there. I've got a whole set of den chiefs for each den, and this is, again, probably a few years old. I haven't broken it out by gender. If your PAC supports both male and female dens and all that kind of stuff. I don't even have lions on here. So, but this is kind of the way that I look at it, and I hope that you can too. Also keep in mind, almost wrapped up here with the annual planning aspect, when you get to recharter, no matter who you are, no matter how big your PAC is, to recharter and continue scouting, you need at least 5 living, breathing adult humans to validly recharter. That includes 1 charter org rep, 1 committee chair, 2 committee members, 1 cub master, and at least 1 den leader. Your chartered org rep can be multiply registered as a committee chair or member of committee. That means minimum of 5. If you can't find those adult humans that are willing to be registered, you got to start looking. Ideally, we have far more than that, right? And once you reach this point, you've got a really good foundation. And really, we've got to this element at the end of being able to answer the questions, what are we doing? How are we going to pay for it? And who's going to lead it? And all this comes together to help define the direction that your pack is going. So I'm going to pause for a second and see if there are any other quick questions before I soldier on. I've got about 6 or 7 more slides to talk very briefly about Journey to Excellence. Anybody need a clarification on anything? Things to add, multiply, divide? All right. Heather, how am I doing?
You're good.
All right. I had to have somebody say it. Thank you. All right.
Again, it took me a lot of money for that.
Okay. Journey to Excellence. What is this thing and why should you not be afraid of it? Journey to Excellence is a National Council program that's designed to recognize programs that are doing things right. And it's really, well, I'll get to this in a second. The history here is, for many, many, many years, it was called the Quality Unit Award. I won't go into all of the ribald jokes that, as a Boy Scout, we had for the quality units. It was renamed back about 10 years ago to the Journey to Excellence. I like that name. It's fantastic. Know that it has a long history. It's a little bit spotted in terms of its quality, but right now it's actually a really decent thing. Fundamentally, it's a report card that we as unit leaders get to fill out for ourselves, which sounds a little vacuous, but it's really not, because we can use this to really examine our own units and determine what's going well and what things could use improvement. And I really encourage each of you to look at it from that perspective. It's like a slalom course, and these are just set of goalposts that you have to go through or try to get through as we go down the hill. I'm an old skier, by the way, so sorry. That's my analogy. The scorecards for these do differ slightly from one year to the next. Some years they vary. They change very little. Some years they change a lot. So make sure that you're looking at the current year's scorecard. And as we go through, make sure you look forward to the next one and just check it to make sure it's not wildly different before you blaze a trail of who's going to be in charge of what. It's part of the rechartering process. You do not have to submit it with your recharter, but it's essentially submitted at about the same point in time. It can be given directly to your unit serving professional, your district executive, which right now is Lisa DeCoster. You can also submit it with your recharter paperwork as well. They'll accept that. It is measured on a calendar year basis from January 1st through December 31st. Not program year, not school year, not your budgetary year. It's calendar year. So always keep that in mind. There are pretty much always, or have been for quite a few years now, 11 basic objectives ranging. I'm not going to read these to you, but they're all different aspects of how a scouting unit can be doing well or be having some challenges. And each of these 11 objectives has a bronze, silver, and gold level, and you can look into that and read up to that for yourselves. It's pretty clear. And then overall what happens is you earn points in each of those 11 objectives. You sum up all those points, you look at how many of those objectives you actually earn some points in, and there's a little formula for what you earned. Did you get bronze? Did you get silver? Did you get gold? Honest to goodness, people, most packs I know can earn JTE bronze in their sleep. All you got to do is fill out the paperwork and hand it in. And then you can have these cool patches that everybody gets to wear. If you miss one or two of the goals, everything is not lost. It's actually pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. And I have some tips for getting yourself to JTE Gold as a pack. It's not as hard as you might think. First and foremost, encourage and prioritize rank advancement. Make sure your scouts earn their rank. Make sure they're doing the stuff that they should do. But go back to that, do your best philosophy that we have in Cub Scouting. and make sure your den leaders have that as their priority. This isn't just a fun for the sake of fun. We want them to actually have a sense of accomplishment. Also, record your unit's service project hours in the online tool, not currently in Scout Book. It is in a different tool entirely. I can point you to where that is if you need a pointer. Get those scouts to summer camp. I know this isn't the best year for that, and I'm waiting to see if National will have a exception for that particular set of things, because we don't have summer camp here. But that is really an important one too, of getting your scouts to summer camp, getting your leadership trained. Every single person in your pack that's registered can be fully trained online in their pajamas at 2 in the morning. I promise you, it's all online. So there's no excuses to not be fully trained. Have a few of your pack activities over the summer so you can earn the National Summertime Pack Award. That's actually a big point earner in this whole thing, and it's easy to do. Have activities with your local troops. Most of us have relationships with local troops that we send our scouts to once they cross over. Invite them to come to your blue and gold to do something. Go to a troop meeting. Webelos Woods is a good example of this. Do things occasionally with those troops on a regular basis, because there are always things on our packed scorecard that say, did you do stuff with the troop and how many times did you do it? And guess what? There's also parts of the troop Journey to Excellence scorecard that says, did you do things with a pack and what were they, right? They're complementary. They work well together. Do your very best to recruit new scouts every year. And it really comes down to the numbers and percentages and the size of your pack. And again, you can read up on that. And again, having that annual planning conference that we just talked about, where you have a budget in place, you have a calendar, you have a succession plan. These are all really important and will get you to gold in no time. Why is it important? This is first thing I'm going to mention is a little bit less so, but it still might happen. You might have people potentially looking at your pack to join and come up to you and ask, hey, where did you score on JTE this past year or two? This is more true for troops, less true for packs, but it might happen. Also, this is an award that for the most part, we adult volunteers earn, but we can all celebrate how awesome our packs are and by wearing the patch that I mentioned. You get this awesome patch, and every single Cub Scout, every single adult leader can earn that and wear it on their uniform on their right pocket. It's easy, it's fun, it's a great little, yay, hooray moment you can have. And as mentioned, this is ideally not something that your scouts are going to be incredibly aware of. That's what I mean by transparent here. They don't have to put the effort in. It's really up to us to put the effort in as adult leaders. So they can just celebrate that, yay, the pack is amazing. And really, it shouldn't be a chore. It should be that goal-oriented thing that I was talking about, a set of goals that we try to hit to improve our scouting program. More importantly, why this really matters is that Journey to Excellence filters into a couple of very important recognitions we can offer our volunteers. Scouters training is one of them. Most of you should be aware of this, I hope. Scouters training is a 2-year commitment. Things like Cub Masters, Assistant Cub Masters, committee members, committee chairs, and I think Chartered Org reps are available, and pack trainers as well, if you happen to have one. Each of those 2 years, your pack has to reach JTE Bronze. It's not hard. You just got to do it. And then Cub Masters Key, 3-year commitment, and your pack has to reach JTE Silver for 2 out of those 3 years. Know that Journey to Excellence does not factor into Den Leaders Training Award. Just makes it one less thing to worry about. But we should really look at these recognitions as some way to say thank you to the adults that volunteer their time, their effort, their blood, sweat, and tears at making an amazing program for our pack, right? If you're curious, I got some resources here, some links. National has a site where they keep everything, and there's lots of great information. The second link will point you directly to unit scorecards, so you can take a look at what the pack's scorecard looks like, troop, crew, ship, the whole bit. And then that all rolls up to a district scorecard. So districts actually participate at their own level, and all those districts roll up to council scorecards. So it's all very, very roll up the hill kind of thing. And you'll see a lot of that. And you might see some more encouragement coming forward now that we have this amazing new district to really get our units to turn these in and to do the best they can.